What happened was I recorded my review of the book Fate Be Changed. I felt like I said what I had to say about the book and summed it up correctly, and then I edited that review and it was only about 5 minutes-ish. I thought it was usable, just not long enough, so I decided to combine it with a video about Brave the movie. So here's this segment about Fate Be Changed, and then we'll get back to other Brave stuff. I made the mistake of allowing myself to be excited about this book. I have long wished that Brave hadn't had Merida's mother turn into a bear and stuck with that as the main plotline. And this book is built around the question, what if the witch gave Merida a different spell? So I thought, hooray, they're finally going to fix it. They didn't. The premise sounded interesting. Instead of turning her mother into a bear, Merida ends up going back in time to when her parents hadn't met each other yet. Very early on I realized that this is a lot like Back to the Future, with Merida messing up her parents' first meeting. I'm almost always frustrated when the protagonist is the one who caused the main problem of the story. It kind of does the Back to the Future thing at the end, where you see that things are better off because of what she did to change the past. But the changes Merida ends up making to the timeline are ones where she keeps alive the people that were unlikable. And a lot of this book is counting on you to care about Eleanor. She's basically the co-protagonist. But I found Eleanor to be hypocritical, uncooperative, entitled, and unlikable. A big part of this book is Eleanor trying to escape an arranged marriage, and the book is very aware of the irony in that, because Eleanor ends up trying to get Merida married off, but it fails to convince me that she's gone through something that warrants that change of mindset. I mean, yes, she ends up marrying Fergus, but she does that out of love, not because she felt obligated to do it. Eleanor does a lot to get on my nerves in this book, and she needed to do some big things to make it up to me, but in my opinion, she never did. It's like the book thinks she can get you to like her if you feel sorry for her, even if she's been insufferable the entire time, and that's not how this works. But if you're interested in reading this book, it's probably to get more Merida. If there's one thing to like about Brave, it's Merida. But the Merida in this book doesn't even feel like Merida. She's constantly in positions where she has to be the adult in the room, so you never really get her comic mischief in this book. Early on in this book, Merida is super frustrating because it takes her so long to figure out that she's traveled back in time. It takes her about 6 or 7 chapters. If you read the plot synopsis like I did, you knew that she was going to travel back in time before the book even released. And even if I hadn't read that, I would have been able to figure out pretty easily what's going on pretty early. So you're just waiting for her to figure out the obvious. A lot of this book is spent with Merida and Eleanor in the castle interacting with the staff, and it's super uninteresting. There's a bunch of names that are thrown at you and you're expected to remember that this character does like Merida, but most of them don't like Merida. And there's only one of them that's actually relevant to the plot. And it expositions in circles with these characters, repeating stuff you've already heard too many times. I mean, I get that people can forget relevant plot points, but the history of these characters doesn't interest me enough for me to hear it multiple times. Fate Be Changed kind of has some interesting interactions between Eleanor and Fergus, but it really doesn't spend that much time with those two together. The author of this book is Farah Rashan. She also wrote Almost There, which had a few problems, but it wasn't as bad as this. I don't know what happened. I was actually kind of excited when I found out she was going to make a Brave Twisted Tale. If you're a big fan of Merida, hoping for a good Brave book, this is not it. I would instead recommend a book called Bravely. In Bravely, there's this guy called Faradach who's supposed to bring ruin to places that have gone stagnant. So Merida has limited time to bring change to her family and her kingdom. And Merida actually finally has love interest in that book. It still doesn't have the level of action I would like to see from Merida, but it has enough good stuff to make up for it. If you are itching to see Merida do a bunch of combat, then I would actually recommend Brave the video game. It's surprisingly fun. The next Twisted Tale they're going to release is Sally's Lament. That one is coming in October, but that one's going to have to wait because Prince of Glass and Midnight is also releasing in October, and you know I'm going to read that one first. I loved Prince of Song and Sea. I ended up liking Prince of Thorns and Nightmares, but not as much as Song and Sea. I'm hoping that Prince of Glass and Midnight will be on the level of Song and Sea, but I'll try not to set myself up for disappointments this time. My thoughts on Brave are very similar to my thoughts on The Princess and the Frog. In the first act, you have such a lively setting, you have an interesting princess main character, you have some fun side characters, and then they blew it all up by turning a character into an animal. However, I think Brave is a little bit more fortunate than Princess and the Frog. Well, keep in mind that I'm saying that before Tiana the series releases. In terms of books, Tiana got Almost There, which was good with a few caveats, but Brave got Bravely, which was a lot better in my opinion. I mean, yes, it got a clunker with Fate Be Changed, but that doesn't really take away from Bravely. And in terms of video games, the Princess and the Frog video game looks terrible, but the Brave video game was a lot more fun. But again, I'm saying that before Tiana the series releases, so I might be appeased by that, or I might be disappointed. I don't know. But still, I thought it might be profitable, fun, to look back at the movie and talk about what worked and what didn't work. Maybe talk about why some people love it despite its flaws. Maybe point out a few things that are seldom talked about, perhaps. And I am going to be talking a lot about Bravely during this. I sort of want this video to be a review of Fate Be Changed, a discussion of Brave, and a discussion of Bravely all in one. I pointed out a while ago that every Disney princess film, starting from Princess and the Frog up till Encanto, started with a flashback with the Disney princess as a child.
Each year on her birthday, the king and queen release thousands of lanterns into the sky, in hope that one day, their lost princess would return.
Can I please? Can I?
Not with that. Why not? Use your very own. Happy birthday, my wee darling.
The sky's awake, so I'm awake, so we have to play. Go play by yourself. Dave, wake the fairy queen, who breaks the spell and saves everyone. And they all get married.
Make your family proud.
Make my family proud.
It might be a merchandising thing. I just realized that Wish did not have a flashback with Asha as a child. I don't know if they just couldn't figure out how to do it, or they gave up on selling the merchandise for the child Disney princesses. Well, I say that Wish didn't have an opening flashback with Asha as a child, but I only watched that movie once, and I'm not gonna watch it again, so it could have had one, and I'm just forgetting. I think I remember it well enough to say confidently there was no part with her as a child.
Come on, you!
Don't skip the... That's one of the problems with this movie. It waves around the swords, but it doesn't actually show you much action. I called out Fate Be Changed for not having Merida be mischievous enough. In Bravely, she's a bit more mature than she is at the beginning of Brave, but you still get these moments of mischief here and there, if I'm remembering correctly. It has been a while since I read Bravely, but I don't remember taking issue with Merida's portrayal in that book. One of the reasons why I say that this film has so much potential that was wasted is because of the Scottish culture in it. Not only is there the fun accents, there's also this music that's so heavily Scottish inspired.
Princess should not have weapons, in my opinion.
Leave her be. Princess or not, learning to fight is essential.
I do like this film's seldom seen approach to gender stuff. Yes, it's taking issue with the stuff that Merida is expected to do because she's a woman, but it's not throwing men under the bus for it. It has Eleanor be the one to enforce all this gender role stuff, and Merida has a much more healthy relationship with her dad. I think that the guys in this film are also portrayed as victims of the system, kind of, because they've been brought up to think that violence is the solution to pretty much everything, and they get nowhere because of it.
I can't do this.
Sure you can. There, that's my queen.
I do like these two together. It helps a lot that Eleanor has such a good marriage. You can even assume that their marriage was arranged too. So because Eleanor lucked out and happened to get a guy who's good for her, she thinks that this system is acceptable.
That's that. Good day to you. We'll expect your declarations of war in the morning.
When I first watched this movie, I was quite off-put when she said we expect your declarations of war in the morning, because I took that seriously. I thought that she is seriously willing to let all these people die in a war just for her sake. I get that a lot of people like how she's defying expectations, but when you put it in the context of her possibly causing a war to avoid one marriage, her defiance is less than cost-effective. You can always say that she doesn't think a war will break out over this, but she doesn't actually say that. I was surprised by how much creative freedom Bravely had with the triplets, where they each have their own personalities. I would have thought that that's something that a book sequel wouldn't have been able to expand upon. Back when they did straight-to-DVD sequels, they had to put everything back where they found it, and every character had to be exactly what they were before. But I guess the triplets aren't really worth protecting in that regard. I mean, they're not really that valuable as is. I mean, they're not really hugely popular characters or anything. In Bravely, Merida's mom and dad are very similar to what you would expect. I mean, they've grown little since the movie, but they still feel like the same characters. I mean, it makes sense for the kids to be different since they've aged a little bit.
With his own sword, stab Bloodhound, vanquish 1,000 foes. And with his bare hands, vanquish 2,000 foes. He held his mighty sword.
Not only do they fight to solve their little arguments, however petty, they also tried to impress the princess exclusively with stories of fighting, so they think that that's just how they solve literally everything. Because of course the only thing a princess would want in a man is his fighting ability. I mean, what else is there?
Only the firstborn of each of the great leaders may be presented.
Only the firstborn could be presented. So if one of the clan's chieftains had a daughter first, would they have to present the daughter as Merida's suitor, or would they just be counted out of the competition? Because she did not specify firstborn son. She said only the firstborn. I mean, given what we know about Eleanor, I'm assuming that she would suffer not the lesbian to live, let alone marry her daughter. But maybe someone could have showed up with their daughter and said, well, those were the rules.
If I give this to my mom, it will change my fate. It'll do the trick, dearie.
I'm not sure if I should be angry at Merida for not asking for specifics, or angry at the witch for thinking that this is what Merida wanted. If there's one thing to be said in her defense, it's that the witch might not have told Merida that it turns the person into a bear, even if she asked her. The spell is supposed to be undone by mending the bond, so that was probably the point of the spell, to mend the bond. But this is a very roundabout way of doing this, and it's not really to her credit that it happened to work. No, this could not be the plot of the movie. Change back into the human, we have to find something else, this can't be the movie. They left the fact that she turns into a bear out of the marketing completely. So when I watched the movie for the first time, I didn't know that this was going to happen. Just by watching this one scene, I knew it was over. They weren't gonna recover from this. The triplets are obviously not ideal role models, but they do add to the film's themes because the guys in this film are brought up to solve all problems with fighting, but the triplets are good at using their heads to come up with creative solutions. And their creative solutions are a lot more effective than trying to solve everything with fighting. It's good that the film knows that Merida's actions are not very justified. This part is so weird. She's learning how to catch a fish the way a bear would, as if she's going to need these skills when the plan is to turn her back into a human. I'm watching someone learn how to be a bear. What am I doing with my life? I get that it's supposed to be fun mother-daughter bonding time, but it's not fun.
Mend the bond torn by pride. The witch gave us the answer. The tapestry.
Merida is kind of dumb. Obviously, mend the bond torn by pride means fix up your family relationship. Why would the tapestry be necessary to fixing this? It's not like the witch knew that they had a torn tapestry. If that's really how it works, then what would they have done if they didn't happen to already have a torn family picture lying around the house? Would they have had to make a tapestry, tear it, and then fix it?
I've been selfish. I tore a great rift in our kingdom. There's no one to blame but me.
Given her sincere apology, you can forgive her for almost setting off a war. And I do like how Merida and Eleanor meet each other in the middle. And even if I would have liked for her to have a love interest in this movie, I like how she talks about finding love in her own time, as opposed to never wanting to be married. The romance that she has in Bravely is really good. There's a ton of time for them to talk together. Their personalities work well off of each other, with stubbornness meeting stubbornness. And Merida initially hates him until she understands why he does what he does. If only there were more scenes for her to show off those skills. It's good that we've learned that violence is the solution to some problems. Not all problems, but some problems. I would not want to commemorate such a traumatizing experience. Brave is one of the most meh films that I would recommend seeing. It's a film that walked so that the franchise could run. Granted, they should probably do more stuff with Brave. Not everybody played the video game. Not everybody read Bravely. Perhaps Brave should have a TV show like Tangled the series. For as much interesting stuff that they have in the family dynamic in this film, the main event is Eleanor being a bear, and it doesn't work. They were trying to make it funny, but it's really not. There's a part where she's sliding down the stairs and then bumping into stuff, and it's so weak. I think that modern Disney films need to look back at what made the slapstick work so well in older films. The slapstick in Peter Pan works really well because they have two things moving at the same time and intersecting with perfect timing. You don't really see that much from modern Disney films. I feel like Eleanor as a bear is holding back in terms of the comedy, and yet it's striving for drama, which it can't effectively do. It's all about the mother-daughter thing, but when I look at Eleanor as a bear, I don't see her mother. Maybe it would have helped if she still spoke with the same voice, but she doesn't. Let's just hope that Brave gets a TV show where no one turns into a bear. So remember to like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, and not make deals with witches.